everyone just joining us. All right, I think we have everybody in.
Was so prompt.
I know. Thank you for being so prompt, everyone. What time is it? 12:01. We'll wait like just another maybe max 1 minute and then we'll get started just to be respectful to all you prompt people. Oh, there we go. Somebody else, Dan's just joined us. And then also partly because I'm really bad at paying attention to people that get lost in the waiting room if I'm if I'm the one that's watching the controls.
Why is it not on my speakers?
Okay. So just a heads up to everyone, we're recording this session. I just want to make sure you all knew, just so that there's a few people that wanted to come and can't make it. So just so that we can share it with anyone who's maybe missing today. I'm not seeing anyone else joining, so I am going to get started. I want to really just first start by welcoming you all here. Thank you so much for making time for us to have this a really important conversation. I'm going to start the session today with a values moment. Some of you may or may not have seen our EOT core values. This was newly launched in 2024, so that's why some of you may not have seen this before. So don't worry if you're one of those people. I wouldn't have expected you to see it. But invite you to just kind of scan the values that we are practicing now in 2024. And for the values moment I wanted to kick this event off with was really around this piece of authentic collaboration. I think it just aligns really well with the conversation that we're going to have here today. And because it's really the type of relationship that we want to build with our partners. We want authentic collaboration with the partners we have, and we want to develop these relationships going forward with our future partners. So for this session today, I'm just going to start by giving you a little bit of context, and then I'm going to turn it over to our very knowledgeable expert, Kristen, and I'll introduce her once we get to that part of the agenda. And she's going to give you all the information that you will need to feel comfortable and confident and prepared to be able to talk to your employers or whomever else you were planning to talk to about fundraising. All right, so I put this graph up here because, of course, I love data. I'm sure all of you love data. So what you're looking at here is the historical trend. So this is going back to about 2002, 2003. So this is the historical trend of Canadian students enrolled in post-secondary engineering programs. And the blue line at the top is people that are identify as male, and the orange line at the bottom are people that identify as female. And so when you look at this slide, we made some, I'll say rather, what's the word, like weird assumptions or improbable, maybe that's the word I'm looking for, improbable assumptions that even if we freeze male enrollment, so like that's never going to happen, right? So even if we freeze male enrollment, we still would need another almost 20 years to get to gender parity in those post-secondary engineering programs. At the current kind of rate of growth that we're seeing for girls or women entering post-secondary engineering programs. So I was a kind of a long-winded way to say, like, this is mission critical. And I'm assuming most of you kind of get that already if you're part of our EIR community and the work that we do at Engineers of Tomorrow, you kind of understand that, but it's always good to see it in different ways and hear about it in different ways. And obviously this data is specific to the gender issue we have with engineering, but because that's the data that we have available to us. But we also know that this is also reflective of just the other underrepresented groups. And as engineers, we need to make sure we're representative of the communities and different cultures that we're solving problems for. And then I also wanted to help give you some context on, you know, what that looks like. So as we dig down into that problem, like, why are some of these things happening? And of course, the sort of part of the whole system or pathway into engineering and into even licensure, there's different parts of the system, and we're sort of playing in that K-12 part of the system. But I would argue we're also playing in kind of all parts of the system, because a lot of you are, you know, working engineers, and so you're in that part of the system, and you would have gone through and experienced all of these as well. Some of you may have seen this graphical representation before around the idea of engineering. Oh, I think someone's in the waiting room. Sorry, I'm distracted. I was like, I better check. So this is just a graphical representation of sort of thinking of engineering as a leaky pipeline. So the light blue color here is for female, the dark blue is male. So if you think of grade 10 science, well, in this graphic, grade 10 science is the start of the pipeline. And so in grade 10 science, it's a prerequisite in Ontario. All kids have to take it. So you have basically a 50-50 split. But then you can see going into grade 11, girls are already starting to self-select out of the requirements that they would need to even follow an engineering pathway. So that's down to 40%. Grade 12 physics, it starts to get even worse. So there's just these known like leaky parts of the pipeline throughout the system. So with our programs at Engineers of Tomorrow, particularly the one that you're all familiar with, that really our flagship engineer in residence program, that program is designed to do a few different things. We're building the pathway for those kids coming into this pipeline. We are helping put girls in those underrepresented groups onto the pipeline. And part of that can just be, hey, meeting an engineer, right? Like, I would have never thought of that, right? And then helping to remove some of the roadblocks that are that maybe get in their way. So maybe they get stuck on, I don't know, they get stuck on hard problems and they need to think about growth mindset more. So removing some of those barriers for students. And then the good news is that we are seeing program growth over the years. So this graph just goes back to 2018 to give you an idea of what we've been doing a little bit over the years. So Engineers of Tomorrow, we became an independent organization in 2018. So we just were sort of getting some stability happening the first few years. Of course, everybody knows what happens in 2020 and whoops, I'm skipping ahead, what happened in 2020. But we were really proud of the fact that we were able to, despite all the challenges with everything going on in the world, we were able to still have some growth happening. So the EIR program, you can see kind of the trends there. And then bringing in other complementary programs like our Future City Experience or FCE program, so that we can continue to create impact in the way that we want to create impact. So it's a good news story, but of course, we do need help. We need to be able to unlock some more sustainable funding so that we can support the infrastructure required to to support this growth. And so that is what we're here today to talk a little bit more about, because we realize that, you know, you're all so passionate about going in and doing the work that you're doing in the classroom with students. But there's an awesome opportunity to connect that work with the employers or maybe others in your network that may be able to help us solve this problem going forward. So with that, hopefully that gives you just a little bit of context as we go into the conversation, the next part of our conversation. So with that, I would really like to welcome Kristen to our virtual stage. Kristen is the founder and CEO of Grantsimple. They've been very instrumental in helping us access a lot of the funding that we have today to support the work that you're all doing. Kristen has extensive knowledge in this area, so I'm really excited for all of you to be able to hear what she has to say. Thank you, Kristen.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I am actually really excited to be in the room with you all because I feel like I still work with you, but I've never kind of had this like face-to-face interaction, so to speak. So it's really cool to kind of see things full circle in this sense. So my name is Kristen Visser. I'm the founder and CEO of Grantsimple. We provide grant writing support and services to charities and not-for-profits across the country. So we have been working with Rebecca and Engineers of Tomorrow for, I think we're going on our 3rd year now. And so we have been really successful in a lot of our grant journey thus far. But the reason why we're here today is because we need your help to get us to the next level. So we're going to talk a little bit about corporate fundraising, what that looks like, and your piece to that puzzle. So yeah, you can change the slide. So the fundraising landscape. So this is something really important, is that it's quite competitive. Some of the recent trends, so there's really, to sum it up, pre-COVID, kind of in the early COVID, there was an increase in demand and a decrease in donations. And one thing that's really important to remember is that although Engineers of Tomorrow is focused on engineering outreach, still a charity, meaning that we are applying to the same foundations and funders that places like food banks, places like shelters, housing support, any other kind of charity that you think of as applying to the same fund. So as we see housing crisis, increase in food prices, all the kind of economic instability and volatility and what that's caused kind of in society, that is our competition, so to speak. And so seeing that increase in demand and decrease in donations. So going into this a little bit further, there are 3 main types of funders. There's government, there are private foundation, and there are corporate funders. So I kind of call some of these, well, I don't call these ones. There's front door opportunities, side door opportunities, and back door opportunities. Really, what we're going to talk about here is the corporate funders. We're going to focus on corporate funders and what the side and back door opportunities look like, because we have exhausted or are beginning to exhaust our front door opportunities. So before we move too far into that, each of these 3 types of funders, government, private, and corporate, all have different priorities. The government priorities are what you would hear on the news pretty much. So when they're going through their budgeting, and that flows through on the provincial and municipal levels, that's going to be things like housing, food, like all the kinds of things that are impacting society. So they are going to look at supporting organizations who move those kind of political budget challenges they're trying to solve forward. Private foundations are a little bit different. However, they are still affected by market changes. And so what that means is basically private foundations are where wealthy people or families or even corporations have foundations as well, put money into it, and then based on their interest that they receive from that investment, that's what they're then distributing into the charitable space. So all of these private foundations, whether it's founded from a corporate perspective, an individual perspective, or a family perspective, there's all reasons behind why they want to give and what they're interested in. For a family who's maybe been affected by cancer, for example, they might start a family foundation and then be supporting things like cancer initiatives. One of the foundations that we have been successful with, the Trottier Family Foundation, so it's a family, and they are really interested in STEM and science education. So our work, one of the common misconceptions in fundraising is how we want to showcase how look at all the amazing work that we're doing and it's incredible and join the cause. And that is an element of some aspects of fundraising. But on the grant side of things, what you want to do is say, hey, I know that you're interested in STEM education and science. Guess what? What we're doing is going to help your mission forward. So that's what we're trying to align. Then we have corporate funders who have very similar, but a little bit different kind of agendas or what they're looking to accomplish through their philanthropy. That's a little bit different than the other two, which we'll go into more detail. So moving on, some of the things that you might hear in your organizations is, or even in various social media or things like that, we're hearing a lot about corporate fundraising and corporate social responsibility. What this means is businesses are starting to say, hey, you know what, we're more than just money-making machines. We're more than just, we want to think about what it is that we're doing in communities and that social aspect of what we're doing. We're providing jobs, we're building communities, all of those other things that go into their operations. A lot of organizations are moving in this direction as a business strategy. And you'll often kind of hear corporate social responsibility also aligned or used parallel to social development goals, which were developed by the UN. So the social development goals are essentially these goals in the next slide. Goals at the UN, I can't remember how many years it took to develop this, but essentially this is what the UN has decided, hey, you know what, this is what's going to make communities in the whole world more sustainable. And so these goals are also listed in priority sequence. So a lot of times when organizations or corporations, are looking to develop their corporate responsibility goals, it is aligned with the sustainable development goals of from the UN. That being said, sometimes you might hear them used interchangeably, but they are actually different things. So keeping that in mind, this means practically that a lot of organizations and the companies that you work with are looking at why they want to do this. So moving to the next slide, I want to show you some stats around how this actually works in your organization. So statistics are showing that 77% of Canadians want to work for a company with a strong corporate social responsibility program. This is why we're seeing it promoted a lot more in marketing materials. Similarly, 92% of Canadian consumers are now being a lot more conscientious about where their money is going and what types of things that's supporting. That's why we're seeing a lot more green initiatives, a lot more things like recycling and consigning with clothes, looking at how these industries have been developed globally and how that impacts us here in North America. 55% of Canadians say that when they look for a job, that they are looking for organizations that are impactful. We're hearing more and more how people are saying, we want to be connected to our work. And a lot of statistics are now moving in that direction where people are really looking at their work as not their identity, but a key piece of their identity. So being involved with an organization that's also active in their community is really important. And 65% of Canadians think it's important to contribute to society and to volunteer. So keeping all of these things in mind, it's hard to find data on exactly how much money is contributed through corporations in philanthropy in Canada. But to put this in perspective, TD, for example, has a TD foundation, and their corporate citizenship arm, they distribute $130 million to charities in just the last year alone. So if that's TD, then think about all of the other corporations that are also doing similar things. So organizations are looking for ways to make these donations. They are looking for ways to align their KPIs and their outcomes and their goals to organizations who are doing this work. Because we're seeing employee engagement is really important. And we're seeing that Canadian employees want to work at organizations that are making that difference. That's why employers are looking at this more and more. So what's happening is organizations, depending on the size of organization, will depend where this kind of sits in the org chart. Generally speaking, in some larger organizations, there is a corporate responsibility department. But basically, when organizations are considering making this part of their strategy, they're saying, 10% of our profit or whatever it is going to go towards charity. Then they have a problem. And that problem is, who do we give it to? There are 189,000 charities and not-for-profits in Canada. So of those 189,000, which ones do we choose and why do we choose them? That is a big job and a big undertaking for anyone to do. Often in smaller organizations, it's not a department. It's HR, it might be somebody in marketing, it might be a director level or higher, and it's something that either they've taken on from personal interest or it's come kind of from the top, but doesn't really land anywhere. So that's a big undertaking to have when it's not necessarily part of your core job responsibilities. So we know now that a large number of organizations are giving a lot of money to charity, but they don't know where to get it, to give it to. So how do we help solve that problem? Well, this is where you all come in. But before we go too far into that, I do want to give an example of what this is looking like on the corporate level. So about 10 years ago, Suncor was really expanding out west. And so as you bring more people into a community, when there's job opportunities, then community needs start growing as well. So what was happening was the Suncor has a corporate responsibility arm and they'll give back to their community. But what they were seeing is even though they were giving such sizable amounts of money, it wasn't actually solving or meeting the community's need. And so that kind of got them thinking about how they can be more innovative in their philanthropic strategy. And so what that looked like as instead of putting kind of band-aid solutions on some of the community problems and responding to grant requests, because I don't know this for sure, but I kind of have a suspicion how it used to be was organization asks for money and then they just give it. And that is kind of more transactional. But really what then they started to do is move more towards a relationship and a partnership model with organizations in their community. And how that actually led to lasting change is because they started working on things like innovation. So as rent started to rise in the community, they pooled together, hey, we have all these partnerships and we're in network with all these organizations. Why don't we work together? We will sponsor an office space for you all to share. Things like that. But what this actually led to is that when COVID hit the area, they were able to get money into the community faster now that they had these partnerships in place. So really, a lot of organizations are looking at how do we support our communities and how do we support quickly in responsible and innovative ways. So this is now the name of the game. We need you to help us get to the next level. So moving to the next slide, please. We need your help. You are the key to help us unlock some of this funding that we are trying to go after. What's happening? So we at Engineers of Tomorrow, we have a wait list. We have classrooms that want to participate. We have teachers that want to participate. And we are working on how do we support this growth. We need more resources and more funding to do that. So as I mentioned earlier, there's front door opportunities, side door opportunities, and back door opportunities. What this looks like is Suncor has a front door opportunity. It's open through business hours. You can kind of walk in, leave your proposal and say, hey, thanks for considering and have a nice day. Then they have a lot of corporations also have what we call the side door and back door. These are different pockets of funding that are aligned with different goals in each organization. And so the thing is with the side door is, you could probably enter through the side door of a business during business hours and it's a little awkward. Like, oh, hey, how'd you get through that door? Why'd you go through there? And kind of people are looking at you funny. Or if you go through the back door, we all know that every building has a back door. But this is like you go in the back door, the alarm's going off, they're calling the SWAT team. Like you cannot go in there. But the way to unlock those doors is by being invited through. And so the difference, practically what that means from the grant space is we can approach Suncor as an example and we can say, hey, we're doing this amazing thing in your community. We want to expand to more classrooms in your community and we need $5,000, $10,000 to do it. And maybe they say yes or no because the competition is high. Maybe they've spent their budget already. There's all these kinds of things. But when you get invited through the side door, it's kind of like when you are applying to a job and you get referred by an internal employee. You are far more likely to get the interview and potentially get the job, even if you don't meet all of the criteria. What we mean by that in the grant space is every single grant has very specific eligibility criteria that each organization is applying has to meet. If you don't meet it, that's an easy way for corporations who are inundated with requests to kind of to go through and qualify the applications. So when we're invited through the side door, not only is it the difference between a 5 or maybe 10K gift to maybe a 20K or 50K gift, but it also gives more flexibility in those requirements if we don't happen to meet every single one. And so the problem though is we cannot go through those side or back doors without you. And that's why we're here today. So what we really want to talk about, and this will be a conversation question and answer, is how do you, as our amazing volunteers, help us get those side and backdoor invitations? So it really comes down to 3 simple steps. First is, on the next slide, we'll outline what those steps are. So the first is that you want to put on your detective hat. Depending on the size of your organization will depend on who it is that you need to talk to. Some organizations, like I said, will have a corporate responsibility philanthropy arm. Sometimes this sits with HR, sometimes this sits with marketing, and depending, maybe you have a smaller organization and this would be maybe director level, partner level, or above. But you might not know that, again, depending on the size of your organization and also how public they are with these. Corporate social responsibility is gaining more popularity over the last number of years, but it still is somewhat new. And so what that means is that a lot of organizations do have these programs, but maybe they don't even have a front door, meaning that nobody actually knows that it's there. And so, but they still have them. And so this means that we need you to talk to HR, talk to marketing, talk to people in your organization to find out who it is you actually want to talk to. Once you find that person, you want to, in your own words, share why you volunteer. Why is this amazing? Why does this impact you? Why do you want to do this with your time, and what the impact has been on you? If you wanted to go a step further, you could even talk about what are the skills or the things that you've learned in this experience about volunteering with EOT that you've brought back to your workplace day after day. And then what you want to do is just be direct and make the ask. The thing that I know that it sometimes feels awkward asking people for money, but there's 2 things to keep in mind. One, they have the money and they want to spend it. They often just don't know where or how to do it. And secondly, it's not their money to spend on the most part, unless you're employee owned, and then it's maybe a little different. But generally speaking, they already have this money allocated and they're looking for a way to spend it. And so basically, the end goal of this is we want, yes, resources and sponsorship to help us have more impact in our community, but we want you to help us get connected to your organization. There are many ways that we can connect and engage with your company in different ways. And so at the end of the day, the end goal of this conversation is to get Rebecca and the team connected to the right people at your organization. We can facilitate the sponsorship, make a relationship, engage, because there's so many other opportunities with Engineers of Tomorrow that your organization and your company can partner with us on. That could be more of the employees volunteering with us. That could be lunch and learns. I know we focused a lot of the why on girls and women in particular to get that gender parity, but there are so many other reasons why corporations in particular would want to partner with us as almost their corporate responsibility partner. We can help them, your company, achieve their goals through the work that we are already doing. So help us help you. So a couple tips and tricks. I know for a lot of you, this is maybe new or something that you've never done before. You just want to be yourself. This is a very personal journey for you as to why you volunteer. You don't need to overcomplicate it. It's really just, hey, you know what? We have a need and we need some funding to do it. You have some funding. Hey, let's have a party. You want to share your story and you really want to invite them into the why, because that's what's going to compel the person to, if we're going to go back to the employee interview kind of process, that's gonna hook them more. If it's meaningful to you, you can kind of vouch for this person and you say, hey, I think you really want to talk to them. They're much more likely to do it. You also just want to be direct. This is, we don't need to kind of sugarcoat exactly what we're doing. Or sorry, not sugarcoat, but my point is just we're doing really amazing work and you are part of that amazing work. Not only does it impact the classrooms that you're in, but then it also impacts you and the skills that you learn and that we are bringing back to the workplace. We don't have to hide behind it. We're doing amazing work, and that's okay to kind of own it and share that with your employer. When you share the impact that it's had on you, how long you've been doing it, all of that kind of stuff, it's really, it really captivates your audience more than you might think that it does. Some common questions that come up with this, or some common fears when you're asking for money, is things like, if they say no, they're not interested. That is likely not true. It's probably, maybe there's a lot of different reasons why. It might be something like they've already allocated their budget for the year. It could be something like maybe they we still want to get in touch with them if they've allocated that budget. Maybe it's that they're going through strategic changes in how they're going to approach their philanthropy. Again, even if the answer is no, it's not a no. Because like I said, there are other ways that we can engage with your employer that's not just through the sponsorship. The sponsorship is a goal, but it's not the only goal. So really, again, going back to really what we're asking is for that invitation through the side and the back door, and to facilitate those connections between the EOT team and your employer to start having those conversations. We can cultivate that relationship, we can steward it, we can bring you along for the journey, and you can be part of that process as well. But we really are looking for, when we say it's not just corporate partnership in the sort of transactional sense of the word, we really are looking for those partnerships, like we partner with each one of you in delivering this program across the country. Some might say like, oh, like maybe my employer won't like that I do this. But also the opposite might be true. They might think, oh my goodness, this person is so engaged. They are having opportunities for leadership, and there's all of these other aspects that could be the complete opposite, to see how engaged you are as an employee and what that brings back to your workplace, which might open other opportunities. So I know that sometimes, again, if you're feeling a little bit like, oh, this is hard, or this feels awkward, it does. That's normal. It's very normal to feel that. But I promise, the more that you do it, you are actually solving a problem for the people who are looking for ways to spend this budget. And so we have actually created some resources for you as well to support this process. We have a step-by-step guide of a review of those 3 steps, and some reminders and some pointers, and we'll send that out to everybody after our time together today. And we've also created a resource package that essentially outlines all of the reasons why, who we are, what we're doing, what we're looking for, why we're looking for it, and all of the benefits to what in supporting EIR is. So things like investing in future talent. Again, yeah, we focused on particularly female identifying people, but it also could be just young people in STEM. It could also be just diversity of minds. And, you know, one of the things that draws me so much into the EOT mission is I was one of the girls that said, I can't do this. I can't do math and I can't do science. And I didn't take it in future years. And I thought I wasn't smart enough, and I thought that I couldn't do it. And so I've often said to Rebecca, you know, maybe in another life, I would consider engineering because of just how cool it is. And, you know, I've worked with other engineering companies, and I just look at how cool it is and think about that. I think I would actually really enjoy it, but I was the girl that thought there wasn't a place for me in engineering. So I think about that when we're sharing our story with organizations. It's like, it actually does have that tangible future benefit. We've talked a lot about aligning with corporate social responsibility goals. So if your company does have a lot of that, we're already there. It takes action to promote diversity and inclusion, which we know is so important, not only generally, but also within engineering specifically. It increases employee engagement and morale. We looked at those stats, and we looked at all of the things that are important to employees and consumers as we move, as society is continuing in these conversations. So if employers are looking to retain top talent, this is another way, another kind of feather in their hat towards that goal. And it also makes such a visible impact. And everybody here on this call is going to be the best ones to speak to that, because you are the ones going into those classrooms and hearing those young students talk about the impact that it's made on them. You are the ones that are hearing about the students that are saying, hey, I never considered engineering and now I am. Whether that's, you know, a grade 11 or grade 12 student, or even younger. you're the ones that are going to hear firsthand, I was the girl that was not smart enough for science or engineering, that could have changed my trajectory. And so all that being said is we really need your help for those invites. Invite us to lunch, invite us in that side and back door. We've provided these resources to support you. This support package, the resource package, has all that information in there, but we want you to give that to the person that you're talking to. We want you to print it off, send it by email, whatever you think is best. We want you to actually have this package as, you know, hey, I'm talking to the right person. I'm telling them to my why. We need $2,500 to help us do this, and here's more information for you. So we've created these resources for you to help support in that process and help make you feel more prepared in those conversations as well, because we want to just make this easy, but also give you the tools and resources that you need to kind of help us get those invites. So I know that I went a mile a minute, and I'm sure you have a lot of, I was seeing questions pop up in the chat and I was trying not to get distracted. And so now we will open the floor for any questions.
I just wanted to jump in before there's questions coming up and just say like a big thank you, Kristen, for taking the time to share all your expertise with us. I really appreciate hearing those reminders from you, like there is, the money's there. We're like, and as someone with more of an engineering background, the fact that we're solving a problem, that resonates with me. I'm like, okay, that's what we do as engineers. Let's solve this problem. Let's help solve it. So I really kind of appreciate that context. So yeah, if there's questions, we have Kristen for a little bit longer here. So this is your opportunity to pick her brain on all the things related to fundraising. Maybe too, I thought while you're thinking about any questions you might have, I did want to just share some successes we have had with these kinds of side door and back door opportunities, being invited in, as Kristen said. We've had, for example, one of our volunteers worked for Fujitsu, and she was able to identify an internal grant, one that you can't see through a front door opportunity. So we were successful. We worked together with her to put Kristen's team and us and to put that, and so that she could submit that internal grant. And we ended up getting $25,000 from that one. So that was a big, big win. We have other situations where things will come up. Maybe we identify, or Kristen's team identifies, a front door opportunity, and we might notice, oh, hey, we have some folks that work at those companies. So for example, we did this with Honda. We reached out to one of our Honda volunteers because we were preparing a grant, and the Honda volunteer was able to, even just putting their name into the grant application and maybe a quote from them or something, that can make a big difference as well. I saw, so BT was commenting about Canada Post. So we actually were successful in getting one of the community grants last year from Canada Post BT. So that's a great, and we love working with Canada Post beyond just the more transactional relationship, I'll say. Like, they've been so amazing for helping us get connected to other volunteers. Sarah had a meeting yesterday with like the West Coast engineering team at Canada Post to just raise awareness about what the possibilities are. Some of the other examples, City of Toronto has been a good one for us. They're a great example of someone who we have just a really strong relationship with, so that when we are looking for more volunteers, they always invite us in to do a lunch and learn. And Kristen mentioned, like, we can come in and do lunch and learns. And then what Canada Post actually does for their employees is they cover the cost of travel for their employees to go visit the classrooms, so that doesn't have to, I mean, that's not a cost that we cover right now. So there's all these really great ways that we can work with industry to help grow this work and continue to grow it.
Can I just add something to that, Becky? Since you mentioned it, Kristen, you said that there would be some tools and resources sent out to the group after this meeting. And I just want to call out that that will also include a few helpful pieces on how to bring in your companies in terms of volunteerism, as well as the financial.
Yeah, good point, Sarah.
I was just putting a note in the chat that there's fun fact, until Canada Post came up on our radar, I didn't even realize Canada Post had engineers. And then Rebecca was so gracious to explain this to me. And I'm like, oh, well, duh. And then now out of curiosity, one day I went on Canada Post and looked out all the engineering jobs. I'm like, whoa, that is cool.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks, Kristen. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Rebecca. I'll just jump in because you mentioned Canada Post. I work for Canada Post. So yeah, there's a lot of things under the radar of what we do. Most people think of us as a delivery company with the letter carrier, but we have finance team, engineering, IT, you name it. We have 68,000 employees across the country. So it's a large operation. Just wanted to touch base about the grant, and I really want to take the opportunity to trying to get this grant for EOT as much as possible. So so the grant is $50,000, up to $50,000. It's a sustainability action fund at Canada Post. If we can problem solve and make it how when Canada Post contribute to this program, sponsor this program, that they are sustainably contribute to either future talents, women in engineering field. If we can do that, I'm happy to work together and trying to put together a proposal, or even trying to invite you in to talk to the board of director, so that you know, at least we get a chance of getting this fund, because I know a lot of people are asking for it too.
Yeah, if you could send us information on that, that'd be appreciated, because I know that on the front door side, they have the community grant and they have the signature grant. And those deadlines were passed, I think, in March. So this one, I think I haven't heard of this one before. And one of the other notes about sustainability, what's really cool about Engineers of Tomorrow and just how we operate is we're so grassroots that it's sustainable by design. And so that would be an instrumental gift for us to be able to be sustainable as an organization, but then also continue building sustainability within the engineering profession across Canada.
Fantastic. Yeah. If you have, like Kristen said, BT, like, we're happy to work with you. Like, really appreciate you identifying it too. So if you can maybe just like send us an email, a follow-up email, we can book some time, whatever you think makes the most sense.
Yes, absolutely. I'll do that right after the call.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Anyone else have any other questions for Kristen? Is anyone like feeling nervous? I know that like when I have to go raise money for like my kids' hockey team, like you all feel so awkward going into the different companies like, hi, can I have just $500 for these 13-year-olds to play hockey? So I get it. It can be uncomfortable.
Studies show, not even just on the corporate side, even on the individual side, that people want to give, they are waiting to be asked. And so I think that's just really important to remember, to dispel some of the myths about it being awkward, because often people just aren't even given the opportunity to join in on mission with you. So it's a really amazing, like, something happens inside of us too, when we kind of go out on that limb and we're a little bit vulnerable and we invite someone else into our why, then there's a connection point, even if the answer is no or not right now. On the corporate side, the budgets are there for the most part. Some organizations, I'm sure there's nuance within that where maybe corporate responsibility isn't something they've thought about. But for the organizations that are thinking about this, and a lot are, the money's there. We just got to ask.
I just thought of a question, Kristen. So I'll ask in case anyone else was wondering about this, because we've talked a lot about scenarios like with Canada Post and Fujitsu, like these are large organizations. Do you have any like specific advice or recommendations for someone that might be like one of our volunteers that is maybe working at a startup or a smaller organization?
Yeah, I would probably approach, kind of the HR, if you have it, is always a good place because they're kind of in the know about everything. But kind of whoever's kind of leading the company, I would talk to that person and say, hey, do we have a corporate responsibility budget? Do we donate to local charities? If no, oh, cool, let's chat about that. Or if that's a big conversation. So if you weren't prepared for that, just say, oh, cool, can I put you in touch with a local charity and we can have that conversation? But if yes, then you can say, oh, amazing. I actually volunteer with this really amazing organization. We have a need. We're trying to grow. Here's why we're trying to grow. We actually have classrooms that want to do this and we can't do it. Can you help us? And that can kind of start the conversation.
Yeah, I imagine it could almost be like a little bit more of an like an organic type of a conversation in those smaller companies, and
Yeah.
because there's not maybe so many like formal policies and that.
And the thing with corporations, so I talked a little bit at the beginning about how there's government, private foundation, and corporate, and they all have they're all looking at this differently. So corporations also look at this out as a employee engagement mechanism and as a marketing mechanism. Because again, going back to those stats, these organizations are saying, how can we show consumers that we care about our community? We're going to post it on social media. We're going to show, we're going to broadcast that 10% of whatever goes towards local charities. Here's the charities we support, that kind of thing. So corporations really want employee engagement opportunities. So the fact that EOT has that built into our operation is just the most easy and beautiful win for everybody, because I'll tell you what happens on the other side. And I know this because my history, I worked at a charity. So I kind of saw this on the other side. Because corporations are so wanting, we want an opportunity, an event, our employees to volunteer. We want to make this a thing. It often meant so much more work for us to host the team, create the event. We'd often have to, pay extra for being after hours, like all of this other stuff. It actually became more work and more of a burden for us to actually accept those donations, because it was like, we'll give you the donation, but we want to have a volunteer opportunity. And so a lot of organizations have this challenge. We want to engage employers and have employer partners, but depending on the work that you're doing, it doesn't necessarily always make sense. Like maybe you're a mental health organization, you can't really have a volunteer event for that. So why EOT is just such a perfect fit, because it's like, hey, you want to get back to your community. You want to show the world that you're thinking about corporate responsibility. You want to attract talent because of your corporate responsibility, and you want opportunities to engage your team. Here it is. Like your whole, depending on the size.
Check all the boxes.
Yeah. I mean, depending on the size of your company, it could be something like you could, in theory, get EOT program in every classroom in the school in your community. And that could be like a company, we sponsor this school or something like that.
And I think just as you're describing that, Kristen, I'm reflecting back to like the values moment I shared at the beginning. And what I really love about it is that we're not bending ourselves to fit in with that. Like that's authentically what we're trying to do. We're trying to have relationships. We're trying to impact the system in these really special ways. And so it's not that we're being like, well, yeah, it's not that we're like trying to fit into the box that particular funder is maybe trying to make us fit into. Like we really just are naturally checking off all those boxes by design.
And the other cool part about it is that we are really, I know that we're innovative and COVID kind of made it possible to match volunteers kind of across the country through technology. But generally speaking, we try to match local volunteers with local schools and local classrooms. So it even goes beyond just, to the EOT program. It's that community development, community piece. Maybe your own kids go to that school. Maybe you see them at hockey. Maybe you see them, at the mall or whatever. I was reading some testimonials from one of our EIRs, and it was like students saw him like 10 years later or something.
Yeah.
Like, you impacted me so much. And I think we all were impacted by the pandemic in so many ways, but I think the biggest thing we all have in common is just it was quite lonely and isolating. And I think we've all realized in one way or another how we want to be connected to one another. And so this is just a really tangible, real, practical way for your company. It's so much different, to be frank, than just saying like, oh, we support our community and we've donated like food or whatever. Like, you are connecting your company, your people on the ground to do the work. And impacting your company in that way. And then also impacting you, feeling that connection. Hey, I saw you.
The story that Kristen was just telling, I just wanted to share a little bit more because I know all of the people here will appreciate it. So it was one of our EIRs actually was attended an iron ring ceremony. He's a warden. And so one of the students getting his or her, I'm not sure, iron ring, recognized him from being an EIR. It's so cool.
That's a really cool full circle moment.
Mickey has just put a question in the chat, Kristen, about like the strategy to reach out to public organizations. So I don't know if you have thoughts on that. I think what I would maybe just like to start the conversation there is just so you know, Mickey, it's like what Kristen and her team are doing are identifying those public opportunities, those like front door open opportunities, like call for applications. That's like Kristen has access to whatever databases and all the places to find those opportunities. So the kind of ask or value that all of you can bring is thinking about your own networks. What are some of the things that might not be more public facing that we don't know about, like the one that BT mentioned when Kristen was like, I don't even know which one you're talking about. I'm not familiar with that one. So it might be a more like an internal thing. I don't know if there's other things you want to add to that, Kristen.
I just clarity around what we mean by public.
Oh yeah, do you mean like not private? Like
yeah, just
publicly owned?
Yeah, that's what do we mean when we say reach out to public organizations? And then depending on the answer, I might have something to add. But while we're waiting on that, so for example, going out to reach out to specific individuals, that can help. Yeah, so one strategy too is also, so a couple things. So I don't know if you all would care about this or not, but I did just pull up. So Honda, for example, when we say these front door opportunities, Honda, Suncor, BC Hydro, like lots of the TELUS, they all have these portals that you just go online and fill out a form. Literally anybody could fill it out and put any information in that form. Honda, so they have a pot of money that's allocated to applications that come in through that stream. But similar to BT's example, then there's side door, back door. Side door really kind of means that we still are applying through that portal, but we're putting the name down, or we're saying we talked to this person. Side door also means that we ask volunteers to internally advocate for it. Like, hey, I volunteer at this organization. I heard that they just submitted an application. Who do I need to talk about that? Like, how can we kind of see it get to the top of the pile? And then the backdoor opportunities are what I'm suspecting is the one that, for example, that BT has talked about, the Sustainability Action Grant. That's nowhere to be found. Similar, the Fujitsu application we didn't know about because it's internal. And so those are the things we want to find out from all of you who represent all these different organizations. is there money in their budget that's going towards these types of initiatives? But then to answer your question about going after individuals who can help for just individual donations, yes, you can absolutely ask anybody if they wanted to donate. There's donate buttons on our website. We are a registered charity, so you'll get the tax receipt for that. Similarly, if corporations do ask that, yes, we're a registered charity, so they will get a tax credit for that as well. But also a strategy is, because most organizations have some kind of corporate responsibility budget of some kind, or even an employee engagement budget at A, B, or C, we have also talked about the prospect of, you know, what just general businesses that have engineering are in the community that maybe don't have a huge online presence, and what would their so for example, I have worked with in a different life a small engineering company, and they don't really, they post about it a little bit on their website that they give to charity and things like that. It's not really part of their general stuff. There's no real formal protocol or procedure. They just say we do give to charity. And so that would be, if we knew someone in that company, we might identify them and say, hey, I see on their website that you give to charity. How can we have that conversation to see if they consider giving us a donation?
Yeah, I think we have just a couple minutes left. I want to be respectful of everybody's time here. So thank you again for everybody showing up today and helping us like continue to grow this work moving forward. Like Kristen said, you know, we have teachers on the wait list this year. Like the demand is there. I know Sarah's inbox is like overflowing with all of the people that want to get involved, and the teachers and the new volunteers. So we just have to figure out how to continue to resource all this work. And so that's really how you can help us beyond, you know, going into the classroom. Obviously, we so much appreciate that, but I wanted to just say thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Like we said, we'll send out those resources. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to reach out to the EOT team. I'm also a resource. So, you know, let's say you go into a conversation and then there's more questions. You can always, the better option for questions is always to go to the EOT team, because they'll be able to give more detailed information regarding Engineers of Tomorrow. But if you have questions about, oh, I don't know how to approach this conversation, or further support kind of on just the how to do it, please feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Awesome. Okay, well, take care, everyone. Have a good rest of your day, and we look forward to you testing out these resources for us. Let us know how it goes.
Thanks,
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rebecca. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.